there. Today we are going to be talking about the author and illustrator in a fiction text. Now let's see what you remember from yesterday. If a story is fiction, is it real or pretend? Well, if you said pretend, you are correct. I always remember fiction because fiction is fake. So, when you are looking at a fiction text, you will often see on the cover an author and an illustrator listed, along with the title of the story. Now, the title for this story is Wet and Wild Water Park, and I chose this because it's summer school, and of course, we love to think about fun summer activities that we can do. And some of us might like to go to the water park or go to the beach. I enjoy riding my bike quite a bit. So everyone's got their favorite summer activity, but it looks like in this story we're going to hear about a water park. So I will read the story to you, but I want to talk about the author and the illustrator first. Now, the author is the person that actually writes the story. So the author is the person who sits down and he or she will write the words to the story. So if you go through the story and you see all of these words, the author wrote these words. The author's job is to actually write the story. So, if the author has to write the story, what do you imagine the illustrator does? If you said draw the pictures, you are correct. So the illustrator will read the story that the author wrote, and he or she will come up with really creative pictures to describe what's going on in picture form. So we see what's happening in the story through pictures. I absolutely love pictures because it helps me understand what's going on. I can think about it in my mind, but if it's right in front of me, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I like to see what the characters look like, and then I can kind of understand the story better. So the author writes the words, the illustrator draws the pictures. All right, so now I am going to read to you Wet and Wild Water Park. And we have different characters on the front cover. We have Counselor Lou, Counselor Nico, Will, Marcos, Viv, and Rosie. All right, this story is written by Meg Graves. So Meg Graves is our author. Sometimes it'll say written, it won't always say author is, but the author is the person who writes the story. So our author is Meg Greve. I'm sorry, I thought it was Graves. Greve. And then it's illustrated by Mark Mons or Mons. Mrs. Schnabel sometimes isn't great with names until I figure them out. And I have a hard time sometimes deciphering what their names would be. So I apologize to the author and illustrator if I messed up your name. All right, so let's go ahead and read this story. I'll move myself down and make myself a little smaller. I am so hot, sighs Will. Rosie wipes her red face and says, "Let's get wet in our pool." Viv cries, "Look, it can't keep us cool." Why can't it keep them cool? What's wrong with it? It has holes in it. Oh my goodness. That's not very good. The campers all shout, "Counselor Lou, what do we do?" Counselor Lou walks up with his wand and his magic hat too. He waves his wand and then he says, "Wiggle waggle, splishy splash, cool these campers in a flash." The pool fills up, but that's not all. Slides, rides, and a waterfall. Will wades in the wavy pool. Viv jumps in and yells, Wahoo! Will hops in a little white boat. Waves wash over him as he begins to float. Counselor Nico says, Watch out! You are on the wild waterfall ride. The boat moves faster and begins to slide. The campers shout, Counselor Lou, what do we do? Counselor Lou waves his wand and says, Wiggle waggle, splishy splash, stop this ride in a flash. And just like that, the fun comes to a stop. There is no more water and no more waves. Will sighs and says, I am so hot. The end. All right. What a silly story. Very, very silly. So we know obviously this is fiction because there's some magic in there. We also have, of course, our story is illustrated. There aren't actual pictures, and this isn't something that could really happen. It's just a fun story that we can read and enjoy, and use our imagination. So let's review. When we read a fiction text, we see that there is an author and an illustrator. And the illustrator is the person who draws the pictures, and the author is the person who writes the words. All right, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this book and you feel pretty comfortable knowing the difference between the author and the illustrator.